Have you got that best friend that you've spent, well, just too much time with and now you get on each other's nerves? Well, that could be the case this week behind this latest offering. Hey, welcome to this Dish Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Robertson. Now behind me, we did take a long trek on this vehicle, the 2016 Ford Explorer. Now this is the Platinum, so it should offer a lot, but we just didn't get along on some occasions. One of the places that the Explorer and I got along was really right at first sight. On the outside, this is how I like my SUVs, very rugged and pretty much straightforward. Now the SUV industry, the crossovers and all that have blended and really start to look a little quirky at best. This, pretty much straightforward. Now I drove an Explorer way back in the 90s. This, not nostalgic, but again, delivering those lines that pretty much deliver SUV qualities. One thing I like, of course, the ground clearance. This one also delivering four-wheel drive. One of the reasons I'm a big fan of this vehicle has to start right here at the back end, specifically that third row. Now, it didn't come with this vehicle way back in the day, but it has evolved with this market, really delivering that interior occupancy, something other vehicles haven't done at all, like the Jeep Grand Cherokee, which I'm a big fan of. And where that vehicle really falls short is in the overall numbers. This vehicle coming in a lot bigger. Now by the numbers, this vehicle measured in about 198 inches overall, wheelbase around about 112. Now that's about a foot bigger than Jeep Grand Cherokee, obviously lending it more space. Now what the Jeep Grand Cherokee people say, well, that's a true off-roader. This vehicle, just the same. Both vehicles really pretty, really regal, so why not add a third row like the Explorer? With a four-wheel drive vehicle like this, obviously you want the grip at the corners. With the Platinum, it's pretty much going to be standard. Now what I also like is big wheels. Now I don't like to bling it out too much. This particular model really delivering that with more of a darkened type rim, minimizing the overall Platinum-ish look, still giving you a lot of sport. And this vehicle delivering overall monochromatic kind of scheme. Black accents, dark body color, and this was really menacing when you're going down the road. One other thing you want to look at really is ground clearance. This one coming in not too shabby, around about 7.8 inches. What I prefer is at least 8 inches, really creeping into the 8.5. That's going to give you a lot of ground clearance, especially when you hit the cold weather areas, get a lot of snow. It's going to allow you to go through it a lot easier. Swing around to the grille warfare. This is where you start to see the beefiness of the Explorer, really when it comes down to the overall width, over 6 feet wide, and that all kind of comes together here at the front end. Now, I like the fact that we have no real square edges. Even though this is somewhat box-like, you're going to see some nice curving really right up here at the front. Now, that doesn't minimize this and make it kind of a weakling, really gives you a little set-off kind of pizzazz. Now, what you're going to see is nice stylized headlights sweeping around the side, nice insert grille, and pretty much body color all the way around. Now safety is a key component on any vehicle, and we get into some of that a little bit later on the inside, but it all starts right here up front. Now you do have a camera up front and sensors also in the front and the back. Now what's great about these cameras is they give you a bird's eye view out the front. You can also press a camera button again. That's going to give you almost a wraparound view up here, really getting those tight angles. Now it's going to be better than the average camera just because you're able to see around the nooks and crannies. One area I like to keep aggravation well to a minimum has to be on the ingress, and what a lot of vehicles are doing is exactly like the Explorer, keeping the smart key system in your pocket and the vehicle knows you're there. Now there are a lot of different versions. Some of them had buttons, some of them realize you put your hand there. This one's kind of a combination of the two. Now on the driver's side, what's going to happen is you're going to put your hand there, it's going to know you're there, it's going to unlock the driver's door. Now to access for the rest of them, the button really doesn't relate to that. Instead, you really got to hit that button on the inside. Now I thought about this a little bit. It's really for added safety. That way the driver isn't exposed to maybe anyone hiding here and can jump in. So I'll give them a pass on that. But let's say you go to the passenger side. Now I like the fact that when you come over here, you put your hand here. That's actually going to unlock everybody with ease. Now that's going to be a great asset to really allow everyone to get in real quickly. Now one thing to note, if your hand is here and you go to press the lock button, it will not lock. It took me just a second to realize, leave that away, press it with one finger, it's going to lock it right up. Not to get too long-winded, but one thing I like about a vehicle that locks is really when it tucks in these mirrors, because in the tight spots, after all, this vehicle is going to really fit into that spot quite tightly. This is going to help minimize any scrapes and dings. They fold in when you lock the vehicle, and once you crank it, they fold right out. If you want to start keeping count of the aggravations, well, this could be one of them. And what I'm referring to is the fill-up area. Now, the first thing really is the positioning. Now, this is on the passenger side, and well, that's just aggravation one, because after all, my passengers don't kick in for gas money, nor help when it comes to fill-up. The other one really comes down to security of just this area. After all, this is the aorta of this vehicle. If someone wants to mess with it or even steal the gas, it all starts here. Now, when this vehicle is locked, this is not locked. So regardless of how much security you have on the inside, there's just nothing here. Now, once it's open, one thing I do like is the fact that it is capless. This did make this vehicle that required quite a few fill-ups during our test drive real easy, because once you pop it open, you put it in the filler upper and you're done. Swinging around to the business end of any SUV, it really starts here at the back hatch, and really let's talk about ingress. Now, first thing is the pop-up glass we once came to know in a lot of SUVs, well, it's gone. Not many of them offer it, and what that's going to do is prevent any long items extending out here. Well, of course, unless you leave this hatch up, which I don't prefer. Now, other thing to talk about really is safety. We're long past the days of scratch and feel your way backwards. Instead, backup camera, of course, again, give you that nooks and cranny kind of view. Backup sensors. Now, the sensors across this vehicle are really ultrasonic and really allow you to kind of sense how close you are. Many occasions, your passenger is going to get nervous how close you truly are, but you know you're not going to hit anything. Other thing to talk about, one aggravation I don't like is covering up the rear hitch. Now, this can come across, it makes this vehicle pretty, but after all, you do have to kind of fill this out of the way when you want to tow. Diving into the cargo area, it all starts here with the ingress and really the rear hatch. Now, what I like on a Platinum is, of course, it's going to be powered. Makes life, well, a little bit easier when you're full of things in your hand. Now, simply press this button right here. It's going to rise out of the way. Now, once it's up, what you're going to notice is the back seats in place and decent cargo volume. And the reason for that is a void here when it comes to the back area. Now, what's great is that's going to make it about 20 plus cubic feet, really all because of this area right there. Now, that's really going to rival a lot of other SUVs that just can't deliver it. Now, let's dive a little bit closer in transforming this area to even more cargo. Now, starting with the third row, what you're going to notice first off really is these headrests. Now, they're quite tall and they're going to be somewhat of a blind spot when there's no one back here. So first thing you want to do is really leave those down when no one is seated. Now, the other thing is the operation. Now, this is a Platinum, so there is no manual pulling or anything like that. Instead, there's a bank of buttons that really coordinate with the operation. Now, there's a left and right side, so pretty much depending on how you wanted to work it, you can work them individually or leave it in the middle and they'll work together. There's also the various methods, like versus the fold, the stow, and the normal. Right now we're in normal, but if you simply press a button, these will fold down. Now, it takes just a little bit of time, and is this a little overkill for the most part? Pretty much. What I'd prefer to do myself is manually do all this. It'd be a lot quicker. Now, when you want to stow them, you pretty much press this button again. They're going to easily tumble backwards, and they're going to lay flat. That's going to give you one nice huge cargo area. Now, what you're going to see here is it's going to more than double from the standard area back here to this area. That's going to be about 40 plus cubic feet. Now, when you lay all the seating, that's going to give you over 80 cubic feet, and of course, tons of cargo options. Looking more at this nice void down here, again, nice area for cargo, grocery bags, whatever you want to throw here. But let's talk about the spare tire, because after all, there is one right here, which is a bonus. Now, first thing you gotta look at really is this incidental lip right here. What it does is prevent the cargo floor from being removed. Now, this is somewhat systematic in the whole programming of things, but has to be removed when you need to get to that cargo floor. And the way you do that is two little twist knobs, and it's going to fall that way. Now, that is slightly aggravating. Thankfully, we don't use the spare a lot, so when you do, you're going to have to fiddle around with this, which could be aggravating in the dark for one, on the side of a highway. So obviously they need that for some reason. Obviously, when you got to put it back, it's going to take a little bit of getting used to, but thankfully this is one area you don't have to spend a lot of time with. With a big SUV like this, what you're going to want, well, is a big block engine. Well, aggravation number whatever, that's not what we're going to find. The V8s, well, they're gone. On the Fords, what you're going to find are EcoBoost. Now, they're going to be smaller engines like the V6, but they're going to have that EcoBoost technology, really delivering more horsepower than traditionally found. Now, let's look at the numbers. What you're going to find, base engine's a 3.5 liter V6. That's going to be 290 horses and 285 foot-pounds of torque. Now take that same 3.5, add the EcoBoost technology. That's going to deliver 365 horses and 350 foot-pounds of torque. Now I didn't drive the base version. I've only driven this EcoBoost, and what I found was fuel economy was, well, somewhat anemic. Now what we did is about a 2,000 mile round trip and averaged somewhere about 18 miles per gallon. Now that was okay, but typically we got into the city and it started to drop maybe around about 16. Now this fuel tank is, well, 18 gallons, and well, after several fill-ups we started to realize maybe those numbers are somewhat anemic, and well, we prefer, let's just throw a diesel in here to get better numbers. Now also what we're looking at in between those two engines is a 2.3 liter EcoBoost inline 4-cylinder. Now it's going to deliver 280 horses and 310 foot-pounds of torque. Now I really don't have fuel economy numbers on that, but possibly that could be the best option considering it's inline 4-cylinder, well, and maybe add a couple more clicks at least at the tank. Climbing inside of any vehicles really has to be heaven, because after all, this is where the comfort has to be. Well, the Platinum fell somewhat short here and maybe was slightly aggravating. Where it started was in the seats. Now I'm not a big overall person, but the bolstering was kind of tight. Now that is adjustable if you've touched it. Now I haven't touched it, and the sides really were conforming, and it really came down to the seat bottom itself. Now what I found is really with my wallet, anything in my pocket, I felt kind of cockeyed just a hair, became aggravating, well, after a 10-hour trip in the vehicle. So what I'd prefer is, well, just a little more comfort and, well, just a little bit more width in these chairs. One area that I really liked was the legroom numbers. Now what we have up here is 42 plus inches. The second row, not bad at 39, and even the third row comes in quite good at around about 33 inches. Now let's talk about, well, where the aggravation begins, and it starts right here when you grab the wheel. The first thing came down to Bluetooth technology. I love the fact you can stream your music quite easily on this vehicle, but where it fell short was the shortcuts on the steering wheel. Now what I like to do is constantly seek my music until I find the one I like. Well, you can't do that here on the steering wheel. Even all these buttons, what they do is simply, well, interact with the screen a little bit, but really didn't allow you to interact with the Bluetooth. Instead, you had to be on the screen here, rest your hand here, and simply press the button on the screen. Now after driving quite a while, you'll end up not listening to Bluetooth and go back to traditional radio. Moving on to the next small area aggravation, and the reason I say small, well, is I'm referring to the gauges. Now what you're going to notice is standard analog speed and tachometer, and they look, well, quite nice. In between is an LCD screen. Now in between each gauges is some other information that you can scroll through using these devices, but the primary area I really liked was right between it. It's a nice huge area. Now what you found there is operation for entertainment, navigation, and phone. You simply select it and get into those modes, but I really didn't want to look at that. What I preferred is a digital readout for speedometer. Instead, you had to refer to the old analog version. Now the problem with that is the needle, well, is quite wide. So when you look at the speed, well, it's hard to fine tune exactly. Well, is it 40, 42, 43? It seemed to be somewhat of a variable what speed you were going. So what I had to do, utilize the cruise control, set the cruise even in the city to get a fine-tuned number. Is it 33? That way I knew exactly with what range I was driving. That became, well, somewhat aggravating. Moving on to the next aggravation, well, I'm still sitting here behind the wheel, and what it is really the safety mechanism, specifically the lane awareness. Now what they have is an alert and an aid function. Now the alert is, like a lot of them, it's not audible but more of a vibration response here in the steering wheel, and that's going to happen when you start to go left and right in a lane. Now even if you're trying to change lanes, well, it's going to let you know. Now when you add the aid function as well, now what happens is, well, when you start to do a little bit of left maneuvering, the steering wheel is going to help you get back in the lane. That's fine and dandy, except of course if you're trying to change lanes. You try to change lanes, the steering wheel is going to fight you at least a little bit. That to me is aggravating. What I prefer is pretty much being able to turn that on and off as I please. The aid, of course, you can turn off. The alert, it's there all the time. If you want the ultimate when it comes to luxury, well, it's right here on the screen. Once you press the lumbar function on the side of the seat, this screen will appear. Now you can fine tune the lumbar right here, which I like because sometimes it's just hard to realize what you're adjusting. Now if you notice right up here, a massage button. Now if you press that, yes, these front seats will massage. Now I use this a little bit, not too shabby and not really an aggravation, but maybe just a little overkill. Looking at the dash, what you're going to notice is the 4-quadrant system that you're going to find a lot of Fords. Just simply hit the particular area and it's going to go full screen. And what you notice here in the entertainment is a lot of sources and pretty much real easy to kind of navigate through. Now when you scroll down on this Platinum, what you're going to notice is dual zones up front, heated and cooled seats, 3 different levels. And what you're going to notice for adjustments is really the push button system versus knobs. Maybe a little more cumbersome when you're going down the road. Now when you swing down, what you're also going to notice is this nice little covering here. Now it's nice up until the point where you open it. That becomes slightly in the way when it comes to accessing these. So you're going to want to cover that for the most part, and it does become, well, slightly hard to do, so you got to slam it down. Now what you're going to find in there is a nice little niche, some connectivity, USB, and a power supply. For this Platinum Edition, what you're going to notice is, well, room for 2 here and 2 back there, giving you, well, a total of 6. And you're going to find this nice center console through here. Now, dual cup holders, and you kind of have an awkward center console. Instead of it opening, well, this way, it actually opens reverse. And the reason for that is, well, kind of these weird little trays. No real cup holders once this is open, and we found it actually somewhat useful, but for the most part left it closed. Now for the operation of the bucket seats, what you're going to do is really easy. Now in case these seats are too far back, you can tumble these forward for added stowing. Now pretty much all you got to do is tumble it forward like that. You can press it again and it's going to give you easy ingress back here. Now one thing to note about legroom back there, you are on the back axle, so the back third row is elevated just a hair, giving you, well, just a slightly more comfort. For backseat drivers, what you're going to find is added comfort when it comes to fan speed, temperature select, well, and you also have heated seats for the captain's chairs. Now for extra connectivity, you're going to find USB chargers, and you're going to find a standard house outlet over here just in case you need to plug in different devices. Now that does it for this edition of Road Warrior and our test drive behind the wheel of the 2016 Ford Explorer Platinum Edition 4-wheel drive model, EcoBoost engine, and, well, a lot of good things to talk about, but, well, maybe just a few aggravations. Now, I'm a big equal opportunist and love a lot of vehicles, but after 2,000 miles on this one, maybe it got the best of us and we need a little time apart. And where it came down to it was, well, in the innovations on the inside. Some of them are just quirky to me and, well, just aggravating, but overall it's still a great SUV. I just gotta maybe separate for just a couple of weeks. Now, as always, thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.